Lesson 34, Hypothesis Testing Procedure for One Population Proportion. Example 2. Do more than 2/3 of American voters favor campaign finance reform? Use a 0.01 level of significance and the following results to answer this question. When CNN asked a random sample of American voters if they were in favor of campaign finance reform, 772 indicated that they were in favor, and 243 indicated that they were not in favor. So this question, do more than 2/3 of American voters favor campaign finance reform, has two possible answers. It could either be yes, more than 2/3 of Americans favor, or no, not more than 2/3 of Americans favor. This type of question can be answered statistically using a hypothesis testing procedure, because this idea will either be deemed valid or not valid. Now, to express this idea statistically, do more than 2/3 of Americans favor campaign finance reform? 2/3 is a fraction. Fraction is a form of a proportion. Of Americans, voters is just one population. So this is a one population proportion idea where we want to see if it is more than 2/3. So we express this statistically as P greater than 2/3. Now we're going to use a 0.01 level of significance to answer this question. So we will use an alpha equal to 0.01. Now when CNN conducted their random sample, we found out that 772 indicated that they were in favor of campaign finance reform. So this is the resulting data value, or X equals 772. We also found out that 243 indicated that they were not in favor. So that's the rest of the sample. If you put together the 772 that were in favor with the 243 that were not in favor, that gives us our total sample size of N. Thus, N equals the 772 plus the 243 equals 1,015 total American voters who were sampled. So we could take these sample results and we can conduct our hypothesis testing procedure that involves just one population proportion. So these are the steps that we would follow in order to construct our hypothesis test procedure, starting with stating the hypotheses statistically. So the question was, do more than 2/3 of American voters favor campaign finance reform? That's expressed as P greater than 2/3. But if the answer is no, it's not more than 2/3, the opposite idea is valid, and P is less than or equal to 2/3. Now P less than or equal to 2/3 includes the condition of equality, and so that's always labeled as the HO, leaving the P greater than 2/3, the opposite idea, labeled as H1. So here we're conducting our test of HO, where P is less than or equal to 2/3, which would lead to the answer of no, not more than 2/3 of Americans favor campaign finance reform, versus the alternative H1, where P is greater than 2/3, which would lead to the answer of yes, more than 2/3 of American voters favor campaign finance reform. Now that the hypotheses are stated statistically, we then state our level of significance alpha. It was stated that we should use an alpha equals 0.01. Now, one prop z-test command on the TI-84 calculator can be used to calculate the p-value required to reach our decision. To calculate this result, we need our sample data. In this case, the X equals 772 voters polled who favored campaign finance reform, and N, the total sample size of 1,015 American voters who were polled. So on the TI-84 calculator, we would press Stat to do our statistics, arrow over to the Tests menu, where our hypothesis tests are found, arrow down to the one prop z-test command, press Enter. P sub 0 is the actual number value in the hypothesis. In this case, it's the 2/3. We denote 2/3 as 2 divided by 3. Enter. The calculator, being a decimal machine, converts the 2/3 to 0.6666 decimal. X, the data value in the survey, was the 772 who were in favor. Enter. N equaled the 1,015 total American voters who were sampled. Enter. And H1 includes the inequality of greater than. So we arrow the cursor over to the greater than symbol, and with it blinking on greater than, we press enter to select, and then down arrow to calculate. And with the cursor on calculate, we press enter to calculate results. The result of interest to us in the hypothesis test procedure is the p-value. That's the one that says p equals. In this case, the p-value equals 1.1 e negative 10. Here the result is written in scientific notation. The e negative 10 indicates that the decimal place between the 1.1 really belongs 10 places in the negative or to the left. And then we include the blank spots as zeros when we do so. Since the p-value is a probability and we only need to round it off to the nearest thousandth or 3 places after the decimal, this p-value rounds to 0.000. Now that we have our p-value, we can reach our decision. Since the p-value of 0.000 is 0.01 or less, the decision is to reject HO. And when we reject HO, we have enough sample evidence to indicate that HO is not valid. And if HO is not valid, we have enough evidence to indicate that the opposite idea, H1, is valid. Thus, the data supports the idea that P is greater than the 2/3, which leads us to the answer of yes, more than 2/3 of American voters favor campaign finance reform. So, based on the results of our hypothesis test procedure, we could answer the question as follows. Yes. Therefore, at the 0.01 level of significance, more than 2/3 of American voters favor campaign finance reform.